Hello, everyone. Hey, thanks for the subscription, folks. All right. Much appreciated. I'm gonna get Owen in here right now. I think Owen can hear me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can hear you.
There he goes. Quick thing in chat. Our audio levels are fine?
You sound all right?
Seems so. Good. Okay. Well, we want to get right into this, so... You have the floor, sir.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. It's been a while. I haven't talked to you since October, I think. Outlands is 510 days old today. We're seeing population highs right now for obvious reasons. I think a lot of people are spending more time playing games and stuck inside at the moment. The development team, the Outlands team, wants to sort of send out a message to hope that you're all taking good care of yourselves and practicing good hygiene and following regulations. Granted, I'm talking to a bunch of gamers, so I don't think self-quarantine will be a problem for you.
I think we'll be fine.
I've personally returned home to Canada. There was a request of the Canadian government for all Canadians to return home, so I'm in Canada with my family at the moment, and I'm thankful to be here. Just a sort of PSA to make sure you can help those around you and help those who can't help themselves or leave their house if you're able to. I've been running errands for my parents and some neighbors, so if you're able to do that, definitely reach out and help those around you. Anyway, I'll jump right into Outlands stuff. We're kind of going to backtrack a bit on everything that's happened since October. Around the last time we were doing the last debrief, we were experiencing a huge amount of DDoS attacks, and it was a fairly problematic time for us. We had to leave our host, and we migrated to Amazon now, where we're hosted, and we're able to support a much larger player base than we had at NFO, and also have access to this new tool called Accelerate, which uses Amazon's global accelerator. So for players that are connecting from around the world, you can type /accelerate, and that gives you access to Amazon's internal VPN, which should, in theory, speed up your connection. Basically, what you're doing is connecting to the edge network on Amazon. So say you're living in Seoul, Korea, you would connect to the Amazon data center in Seoul and then speed through internal lines and connect to the server where Outlands is hosted in Ashburn, Virginia, on the East Coast of the United States. A lot of players are finding that this is helping them play the game with less latency, less packet loss. They have better connections. Unfortunately, right now, because so many people are using the internet in general, and Amazon services and services like Netflix, which are hosted by Amazon, Accelerate's not working very well. So if you are using Accelerate and you're experiencing disconnects or random disconnects, then you might consider turning it off for now and just using a normal VPN or using nothing at all. A lot's happened since we last spoke, which was October. We've had some really great events. The Halloween event we had was called Field of Souls. Basically, players ran around the world and found eerie corpses and could collect their souls into a jar, and you would take that soul jar into the Field of Souls and then search out that soul. And if you found the soul that you had captured and slayed them within the Field of Souls, you were granted a certain number of points. There were also other creatures that were spawning in that area, and depending on who you were killing, you got a certain amount of points. So that was sort of the first of our attempts into sort of a time trial new map area, and it was really successful, and I think players really enjoyed it. I really liked the map area. I thought it was cool. There were a lot of sort of unique effects that Luthien coded in, and the monsters were challenging. Players enjoyed themselves. So that kind of segued into what we did for the holidays, which was our Winterlands event. And that was another sort of highly custom thing that we did. It followed a similar speedrun mechanic. Players could find tickets to board a train that was at Prevalia Bank, and they were teleported into this new custom map area, which had a bit of a train theme to it. That was kind of a jumping off point for the whole thing. I just made the map, and I was talking in staff chat, and Eric Gray, who's our seer, who's been doing some really amazing events, has picked up on the idea, and he's an artist as well, and he said, oh, I could make some miniature trains. I thought, okay, like that could be the rare drop. We'll just have some trains, and they can drop in a bunch of different colors, and players can search them out. You know, a lot of players covet certain colors, so I thought maybe they'd be interested in finding this, you know, a train engine in a certain color, and that was where I left it. And then count on Luthien to get a hold of it, and he said, we can make these trains move. So then we built the tracks, and we ended up with sort of fully functional miniature train sets, which was kind of a unique thing, a bit off the lore path for Ultima Online, but entertaining nevertheless. So that was open for quite a while.
I think it fits.
Yeah, it kind of fits. I mean, there's so much going on with spaceships, or Ultima lore, I should say. You know, spaceships and flying carpets and everything else. So we added our own miniature trains to the situation. So that was open for a while. The holidays, we wanted players to have a chance to collect the train sets that they wanted, build the trains that they wanted, and then Expo hosted a train deco contest, which ended, I think, sort of the beginning of February, and we had a lot of really great submissions for that, and it was fun to see how creative people got with the train sets. We have a lot of really cool deco now between the plant system and furniture and what players could gain from Winterlands and all the other events that we've had. So there were some pretty amazing submissions. It's always hard to choose or be a judge in anything to do with decor contests.
Oh, for sure. That was actually one of the hardest contests I had to judge, because there were a lot of very good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone did a really great job with that, and it's always fun to see in Ultima Online. I think because we don't have custom houses, players are getting creative with the deco that they're doing. So that event was fun. We threw it together, and it was really successful. And I think we'll probably be doing more speedrun type events like that. We don't really have any plans for that in the future because we're working on so many other things at the moment. But that was a big one, and it was really fun to watch everyone take part in that. I think we had like 1,000 participants for that event overall over the holidays. It was a busy time, and it was widely enjoyed. So Eric joined our team a while ago. He's been a really huge asset to us. Sort of last time we spoke, or prior to that, we were hopeful that we would have a seer that would come on board and would grab the lore by the horns and steer the shard in a direction that was a bit more creative and add some lifeblood to it. And Eric's really jumped into it. He came from the role-playing community, and then I think he got a bit tired of the game itself. I mean, at that point, we were really dealing with a lot of in-game issues, and things weren't necessarily suitable for a role-playing environment. But they've since shifted a bit, and Eric has really jumped into the event side of things and furthering the lore of the world and adding really unique opportunities for players. The problem with Outlands is that we have so many players online at any time, and it's really impossible for us to do sort of like an intimate storytelling event. But we keep trying. So Eric hosted the Book of Truth event, which took place at St. Francis's Cathedral. there were hundreds of players there. There were players on boats. There were karmatic good NPCs taking part, as well as evil and coming. And ultimately, that quest resolved itself. But it was a really good sort of practice run for Eric, who headed that event. It was kind of a learning experience for him. Expo taught him about running events, and since then we've kind of just let Eric run wild. So Eric parlayed his experience into the Ossuary event, which I teased Ossuary a long time ago, probably way too early. I can build maps a lot faster than Luthien can code. He's got a lot on his plate, and events are usually, they happen at the last minute most of the time. I think sometimes that's evident, unfortunately. But I teased that dungeon in January of last year, and then we finally just released it. And the events that Eric put on leading up to it were really amazing. I think we had 4 or 5 different events that were widely attended and showcased a lot of the great things that he can do and a lot of great things that the community can do. The Spilling Sands campaign was really fun to watch. It was an example of sort of Ultima Online at its finest. It showcased the map, it showcased the world, it showcased our lore. It all culminated into something. It was definitely hectic. A lot of people, we always get kind of mixed feedback on things.
Oh, there was a lot of people, so.
Yeah, there's always a lot of people. It's a blessing and a curse to be the largest Ultima Online shard running, because we just can't scale things accurately for the number of attendants, and it's either too easy or it's too hard, or people say that they, there's always someone spamming worst event ever in the background, which always makes, and that's every event. So
every event.
Anyway, Ossuary culminated in the opening of Ossuary 4, which was a campaign that we created, an event score event, and it was basically players running around Ossuary, killing monsters, and if you ask some players, they call it a walking event, or a running event. I forget what they coined it, but basically they had to look in every nook and cranny of Ossuary and find Ossuary artifacts. And you could either get those from killing a monster or stumbling upon them within the dungeon. And that went on for a week. We didn't really know how long that would take. I think Expo and I had a bet where he was like, it'll be done in a day. It'll be done this weekend. And it ended up lasting a whole week. And it opened Ossuary 4 opened on a Friday. Basically, once you found an artifact, you could turn it into an NPC in Cambria, and if you were a crafter, you could attempt to make a counterfeit artifact, which would either give you a higher score or your artifact would be denied. And the event was really well attended. We had hundreds, 1,000 participants, something like that, discovering artifacts and running around the dungeon. And the dungeon at the time was overspawned, and it was just madness. And it was sort of the first time that we had the shard working together for a common goal. I think Ossuary is one of our most widely used, widely visited dungeons anyway. It was one of the first dungeons that I built. It was the first dungeon that we fleshed out in beta, and it was always one of the easier dungeons. So when we set out to make Ossuary 4, we knew that we wanted it to be difficult, and I have a fondness for Ossuary just because of those sorts. The beginnings of the shard were really on Ossuary. It was one of the first dungeons that I built, and sort of ever in terms of map making. And then also, it was the first dungeon that people got to see. So once the dungeon opened, there were a bunch of bosses. It was overspawned, and it's been really fun to watch players tackle this content. And it has sort of inspired us to continue on with these dungeon expansions. I already have Mausoleum 4 built. I'm excited about that. That was the second dungeon that we released while we were testing in beta, and I think it's another that deserves to be expanded. It has an interesting theme, sort of always has had an interesting theme, and I think that it will be fun to see how that will expand. That level's really big as well, so Mausoleum we'll see an expansion. I don't even want to say the near future because I don't know when that'll happen because we've got so much else going on, but that's in the works. as well as an expansion to Nucero 3, which is quite a small level, and it's not. It's one of the least profitable dungeons to play in, so I think a lot of people avoid it. I'd also like to see Darkmire expanded. All dungeons basically should, at this point, receive some more challenging content. So that's all in the pipeline. We can move on from Ossuary now. What's next? We have the spring series happening in the PvP world in the arena. Tomorrow will be the culmination of 8 PvP events, and there's a cash prize tournament which happens tomorrow. That's Saturday at 9 p.m. EST. First place gets $250, second place gets $100, third gets $50. In terms of the series, I think we can congratulate Fulkin or Flube for his victory. I don't think anyone can catch up at this point. He had a strong showing, followed closely by Pax Romain, who called himself Paximus, I think, for the event. So if you're interested in taking part in the cash tournament, I just wanted to remind everybody that we have an arena system where you can go to the arena and you can set up a template however you like. You don't necessarily have to have a character that fits the order rule set, and you don't have to have a character that's finished at all. So anyone can basically log in and set their template with a brand new character and take part if they want to. So feel free to join us, join the tournament and set your skills up, and then you can take part in the tournament for a chance to win some cash. I will say you can choose to have Prevalia coins or cash, but I don't think anyone's ever taken the Prevalia coin offer, so it'll be a cash prize tournament. Strangelands launched 2 weeks ago. We tested Strangelands a lot on the beta server, and we got it to a really great place. I think there are still some problems with grouping with Strangelands for those who have played it that we'll work to address. Luthien is actually playing every Strangelands event, which is fun. I don't know if any of you have run into him. You probably have. He's been on the ground and playing it. I don't think Expo and I have played it yet, but we definitely watch it.
No, I watch it, yeah.
Yeah, we watch it. Expo's been working on this video, which I'm playing now. Strangelands is an anonymous survival free-for-all where players enter into a new map. You probably recognize a lot of the areas because I just pieced together existing parts of the original map, and you're pitted against other players who are all named a stranger, and you have to find food and water to survive. Once you die of thirst or hunger, you're eliminated. Happens twice a week right now on Sundays. Once it's supposed to be 3 a.m. and 3 p.m., but because of daylight savings time, the schedules are all a bit mixed up. So it's happening at 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. to accommodate everyone that plays the server. We see very different games happening in the morning and in the evening, but they're all really widely attended. I think there are between 100 and 200 players at each one, so it can get pretty hairy for sure. There's a bunch of new rewards as well. A bunch of new home deco, a new hue. It's brown, sorry. We're running out of hues, it's all right. Basically. There was a brown one that we were originally saving for Uricton Bluffs, which was our Orc Dungeon, which we've since scrapped. So we just repurposed the hue from the Orc Dungeon into Strangelands. Also because we don't really have many browns. I know it's like not a commonly worn color, but we're just trying to tick every box, and there wasn't really a great brown color before we introduced the Strangelands hue. So if you want brown, play Strangelands or buy it from someone who's playing Strangelands. This is another example of an event that if you don't play the shard, or you haven't progressed as far onto the shard as you hope to, you feel like you don't have a character that can compete in the lore events or the things that Eric Gray is working on, or dueling or PvP events or whatever, you can just log in and pick a template and play Strangelands. You don't have to be a player of Outlands if you don't want to. If you're just interested in this mini game, a free-for-all survival game in Ultima Online, you can download the client and play without actually investing any time into the rest of the server. So that's something that's available for everybody, and players are really taking to it. It's been really popular. A lot of people say they just want to play Strangelands all the time. They don't want to even play the game. So we're thinking about making it happen more often. Right now it's just on Sundays, but I think we could see it happening sort of one day midweek as well for everybody. But we'll see if that actually happens.
Were you thinking about making another map too, or no?
No.
Just because I'm gonna poke you about that one.
Yeah, no, everything's hard coded right now. So all of those spawn sites and everything there's hundreds of hard coded coordinate locations in the map. So I'll most likely just continue to make it feel more sort of Twilight Zone-y, a bit more apocalyptic. I made some changes in the last map patch. There's a burnt out building now in the Vesper section, I guess.
Yeah.
Of what the map would be. And I'll probably just continue to make tweaks to the map as time goes on, as I have time for map projects. But that list is long. I owe a lot of people different things, like guild houses and dungeon levels and all kinds of other stuff that I said I do. So I need to get to work on that and stop being distracted with other things. But if you haven't had a chance to play Strangelands, I'd highly recommend it. It's fun.
A lot of fun,
and the feedback's been resoundingly positive, which is rare for anything to do with Ultima Online or Outlands. So if you if you want to give it a shot, definitely give it a go. I think you can see on the Twitch screen right now, there's a bunch of rewards that are shown. The random sack award is all random deco. So the Direwolf mount was released in a patch a few weeks ago. This is a custom mount created just for Outlands, all new art by Eric Gray. Spawns in Corpse Creek in about 1,000 different hues. It can't be bonded, so it's not really useful in terms of a combat mount. And players have been fighting for every single spawn. So it was created to be something to contest. We haven't really had any regional specific spawns or things that were specific to Corpse Creek other than the Corpse Creek contest. And I thought that when I redid the Corpse Creek map, I would include the Direwolf cave there so that it was a gray area for people to fight over something, and the Direwolf mount really fit the bill. So seems like the black sort of charcoal looking Direwolf mounts have been the most popular, and every time one of those spawns, everybody goes nuts. There are people camping it, people watching it, people recalling it all the time. It's a hotly contested spawn at the moment. It doesn't look like there's one up right now. It's on a bit of a long range spawn just to keep it sort of exciting. We know that people devour content as soon as it's available, so we're gating it a bit on a spawn timer, but it is spawning fairly frequently. There are definitely direwolves around. It's fun to see people brave enough to use them instead of just using them as bank sitting mounts. And yeah, I think we'll try to do more things of this nature in terms of the exclusive spawns and covetable spawns and things to contest, because it's kind of a missing piece of the Outlands puzzle at the moment. We have Belial working on a skeletal mount at the moment, so a skeletal horse, which I'm not sure when it'll be finished. It's a lot of work to do UO pixel art, something like 850 frames. And also he's working on an armored warhorse, which will most likely be a faction reward, and then players will be able to dye the armor of their warhorse with different hues using barding dye. So that's just a further level of customization that players will have access to. So moving on, we added a new aspect, blood aspect, and a new tier of aspect armor for players to continue to work towards. There were a lot of concerns about essence consumption and aspect gear not really being profitable past a certain point. So we didn't do anything about that. Essence consumption is really the gateway to aspect. It's been an interesting understanding of players. Aspect gear was originally introduced as something that was meant to be a bonus to your gameplay, a long-term progression, but the reality was that players quickly began to feel like they couldn't play without aspect gear. So the aspect system has evolved from being a set of armor that was really something covetable and something that you took great care of and something that was only blessed for a small period of time to something now that you can have on at all times. So essence consumption was originally sort of scaled for that, the rare, the limited occurrence of using aspect gear, whereas now everyone uses aspect gear all the time and players don't feel like they can play without it. So it is meant to be expensive. If you're able to walk over content and proc for high damage and what damage monsters or walk over monsters at an accelerated rate, then of course there's going to be a cost associated with that. It's up to you how you want to manage your essence consumption. So we added the magic item recycler just as a quality of life item. I think there's still dealt with that. It was initially released before it was meant to be, and then we put another set of revisions onto it and released it again. And I think it's getting to the point now where it is useful. I know a lot of people use Steam to sort their magic items, but we're moving away from Steam, which I'll speak to in a little while. But that should be a way for you to just dump your magic gear and then choose what you want to recycle and keep without having to use a macro or sort it. And then you can easily pull out what you want from the magic item recycler. So that's just one quality of life item that we've added recently. And then Prevalia Merchant got some updates. We added some new home deco, some new dyeable furniture. We just added carpets, finally. I know that was a long time coming. I was really sick of seeing fishing nets on everyone's roof. Well, everyone's floor, but some people definitely put them on their roofs. You know who you are. And carpets are also dropping on monsters. Players can craft them, and you can also dye them. So you don't necessarily feel that you have to donate to purchase. You can also always buy anything on the Prevalia Merchant with gold. So if you have a surplus of gold and you just want to spend some of that, you can buy your deco that way. There's also some new clothes. We just added an ornate robe and a tunic, which are some nice looking clothing items if you want them. Those are not limited edition. They'll remain on the Prevalia Merchant and be available for purchase for some time. So you can buy whatever you want. They're also on the test shard. So if you want to check them out, try on some hues, whatever you want, you can log on to the test shard and give that a go. Test shard's always up, or we try to keep it up all the time anyway. It's up to date right now, so you can place a house, place some carpet, try on some clothes, try some hues, do whatever you want over there. And now we will jump into the future content, which I think is what most people want to hear about. I've got a long list. A lot of it's kind of vague. I don't want to release too many details. I take a lot of flack when I say things. Yeah, you know
how that'll happen.
A good example of that is Ossuary was basically trolled for months and months and months, waiting for people, or from people waiting for Ossuary, and then feeling like it was sort of a too little, too late situation. Anyway, the first thing I'll address is ship stuff. My ship people, ship heads. There's a funny incident this morning with a bunch of people on a ship, and 8 of them ended up in jail. Anyway, I think Bert just woke up with a hangover. He was pretty drunk when I put him in jail. Luthieus loves the ship system and his ship people, and he's working on some new things. So first, I think, is a new catch of the week system, which is sort of like the society job system, but a bit more involved. And it involves fishing at message in a bottle, fishing spots, special nets, etc., etc. If you're familiar with Stardew Valley, you can think of it kind of like the collection system that they have. He's also finished the aquarium system. So if players have purchased aquariums, they can put fish that they've caught into their aquarium, move them around. There's a few different backgrounds. So that's all ready to go and coming soon. We're also working on a new PvP ship event called Shipbreaker, which will involve a new island fortress and destructible statics, and those details will all be released as they're fleshed out. But basically, I think players on ships will try to take over an island, and it will run twice a day, most likely. I'm not sure exactly how it will schedule, but it'll probably be in a certain time frame. There's also some new ship crew members, ship abilities, upgrades and themes, plus new speeds and speed upgrades. We're also working to address the multi-client PvP issue. I'll say that I've been asked 100 times about multi-client PvP at sea, and I'll be honest, it's something that I've always turned a blind eye to. Even though we have multi-client PvP rules, there are definitely players that are taking advantage of this now, as well as abusing different scripting mechanics to just wreak havoc on the seas. So unfortunately, just like everything else, it's gotten to the point where we have to add some mechanics to prevent this sort of abuse. So those will be coming in an upcoming patch to try to even the playing field at sea. It's always ironic when I see players who complain about that sort of thing, but they're also notorious abusers. So just, keep in mind that don't bite the hand that feeds you, or whatever the saying is. You reap what you sow. Don't shit in your own bed. Blah, blah, blah. Just try to be respectful of the people around you and the people that you're playing with. The ship community is particularly small, and by isolating yourselves there and making it difficult for people to join you, or by abusing mechanics that prevent people wanting to take part with you out at sea, you really limit the number of players. I think the ship system's hard to jump into anyway. It's quite complex. I don't find it very intuitive. I mean, I just tried to drive a ship today and I was like, this menu makes no sense. So let's try to be inclusive of everybody who wants to jump on board and not abuse stupid shit. I don't need to talk about it on the debrief, but that's the ship stuff. I think one thing that the PvPers want to hear about is Stygian Rifts. PvPers might have been listening, but might have signed off already, because everything we talked about is PVM based at this point. But we're still talking about it. It's still in the works. The maps are 75% finished at this point. I wanted to build 3 different maps, so we can have 6 teams of potentially 5 players going at a time with the Stygian Rift system. For those who don't know what the Stygian Rift system is, it's kind of our offshoot of the Hellgate system in Albion Online. It's being kind of complicated for us to land on what looks like in a UO. I envision it being small group, 2 to 5 players, no pets, fighting in an arena. Each of you has a score. It all contributes to the final result. There's bosses on either side that you have to take down, but really they're just there to make positioning more complex. But we also want to add some kind of progression system to that, be it armor or whatever else, so that the system isn't just, brainless arena sterile content, which is something that we already offer. I also don't want it to be a PVM event, which is something that Luthien skews it toward, because I know that there is a lack of PvP content on Outlands, and there kind of always has been. Or the PvP content we have is instance. Granted, this is instance as well. Anyway, it's a constant conversation that we're having. We often get into arguments and sort of bash skulls on what we think it should be, and a lot of players have different ideas of what they think it should be. Anyway, we're just trying to figure out the best place for Stygian Rifts to land so that we can release a product that's really incredible and fills the void. And it's not that we're not working on it really diligently to get it there. It's just that we don't know exactly what it should be yet. And anyway, I don't want anyone to think that we've abandoned the Stygian Rift idea. I think that it's necessary. One of the things that we hear about, especially with the Corpse Retreat contest, for example, is that it's just a numbers game. We do our best to balance struggles. That is an auto-balance system, but I think that players want to be able to play with a small group of their choosing against an equally sized small group. And also, pets on Outlands have been another issue for a long time in terms of imbalance. And I want to provide a place for PvPers to play without pets, to be guaranteed to play without pets, because pet PvP is stupid. So that said, sadly I don't have an ETA, but I just wanted everyone to know that it's in the works, and it will continue to be in the works until it's perfected. I think Expo's jumping around in one of the Stygian Rift arenas right now. We have to work out how people get there, how they leave, how they queue up, how we determine team composition and team size. All of those things are nearing a semi-finalized idea that Luthier's code, but at the moment we don't have anything finalized for sure. Next, we will be redoing the scoring system. I know that there's about how town struggles are scored now, and with those recent changes, I think Luthis is going to revisit all of that. He'll also be adding back in Cambrian and Daria maps. I'd also like to see one of our instance maps used. I built an island map that is just green, and there'll be no interference. Initially, we put town struggles in towns because we feel busy, but there's a downside of that where players interfere, non-participants interfere, and they block players that are taking part in. I would like to see an instanced arena there where there is no interference, and it's just an open space. You're not around town, there's no lag. It's really just a standalone arena map, which would happen randomly in the rotation of 10 other map options once we include Cambrian and Daria back into the town struggle rotation. What next? Housing, I think, is a hot topic at the moment. There is no house space at this point. Another sort of blessing and a curse, the Outlands being so popular, and also a curse because of how the account system is set up and players abusing the VPN system or abusing VPNs to set up extra accounts so that they can dominate the IDOC scene. I really struggle with IDOCs. I know a lot of people are messaging me. Stupid. I think it's weird that you can fully monopolize a house falling, looting a house, placing a house, and profiting off of someone who's quit or potentially forgotten to refresh their house. All of that just seems a bit bizarre to me. And I know it's been around progression of how Ultima Online shards go, but just because it's always been that way doesn't mean it always has to. I think that's a mantra that Outlands has taken from the get, that we feel licensed to change things for better or worse. We're definitely willing to try. So that said, a lot of people join Outlands and they don't feel like if they don't have a house or a place to call their own, they don't feel like they can set up shop here. Even though houses have always been sort of an end game thing, something to work towards, decorate and have your stuff in and have a shelf and have a repair bench and have your chests and everything else. A lot of people just literally can't find the space. And if you look at the real estate broker, you'll see that like 150,000 gold right now is at the minimum, whereas you could just buy the deed for 50K and potentially find a place to place it. But we want to get creative and try something new. I know a lot of other do offer sort of unlimited housing for houses placed on top. I'm hesitant to use the term instance housing because it has negative connotations, but one system that we're toying with, the idea of renting a room from an inn. Each inn will have X amount of rooms available. Once you rent a room from the inn, you can access it from your innkeeper. It will have limited lockdowns, storage, no vendors available, no NPCs will be placeable. Obviously, you can't be in PvP. You'll have to go into town, so criminals don't have access to it unless you get a room at the Corpse Creek Inn. This will allow players who can't find a house or a spot for a house to get their footing in the game. They'll be able to, set up characters to spar or macro or whatever it may be. They'll be paying a weekly rental fee, which is a gold sink, and they'll feel like they can be a part a part of the server and work towards owning a house. With limited lockdowns and with a bunch of other features restricted, it doesn't make sense to stay in the inn forever, but should they be casual or only interested in paying whatever the rent is per week, then the inns are an option for them to feel like they can make Outlands their home. So additionally, we're going to be working on further crackdowns on VPN restrictions, new refreshing mechanics, working on stopping script abuse, which is all part of our plan to go towards an exclusive client. And then we'll see where we land from there. It's a pain in the ass to try to swim upstream against players abusing every system, but it's something, I mean, it's the job description. It's what it comes part and parcel with having a server the size of Outlands to begin with, but also a player base that's so savvy after playing UO for so long. I wanted to touch base on guild prestige. I obviously removed the 10k hue reward. There was definitely some upset players about that for obvious reasons. I know a lot of guilds worked their ass off to get to that point, and then I kind of used the reward. Rack, for example, already had their hue chosen, and I'd add it. I kind of wrote it off. I overestimated the viability of hues as a reward. There aren't that many nice looking hues in the game. We already have something like 80 available through all of our systems that are spread out across the board, and giving each guild that reached this milestone a nice new hue just lessened the overall pool of nice hues to too great of an extent. So initially I had said that I was looking for another reward at that point, but I don't know if we will replace that, unfortunately. I think that the prestige system, large guilds and guilds that play actively gain prestige quite quickly. I already have trouble keeping up with even like the 5k prestige announcements. And I regret everything about the prestige awards at this point. Right now I owe 2 guilds 15k guild houses. A lot of them will probably get to 30k, which is an island, before they finish their guild houses. So that system in general was kind of a flippant, off-the-cuff decision that I made in beta when I was asked by a player, you know, will there be rewards for prestige or will it just be some metric? And I wish that I had just left it as a metric, but that's not the case. So I'll continue to honor the current prestige allotments, of course. I'm almost done the Face Guild house, and BB's worked on their sketch for their guild house, so those are in the works. Since I have relocated away from my desk, I'm a bit slower with development than I would like to be. I had to get everything set up here in terms of mapping and file management and everything, but it's getting there. So I'll get back on track with that sooner than later. So moving on to future is the Summoner revamp. We've been talking about this for a long time since Summoners were nerfed early in launch. I think UO without Blade Spirits and Energy Vortexes is a sad place. So hopefully we'll see that all taken care of in the near future. I've always thought of Summoners or summons as being something that's really personal and really customized. So I would like to see that system built in sort of an expansive Luthieus complex way where you can customize the body value, the hue, the effects, the attacks, the stats, the name, the duration, all of these things could be socketed and added on to build your own custom summon. We'll see where that lands. I know that right now our goal is just to add more variation to the existing summons that people. That's on the docket, sort of the current docket for Luthieus right now to be working on. We're also going to be seeing a pet rebalance. I know that scares 90% of our population because everyone plays a tamer, but we recently put in a bard rebalance, which was met with some contention, and I know that the tamer rebalance will be met with even more contention than that. But it's really necessary for us to start to balance classes. Tamers have always been top of the pile, and I would like to see some semblance of balance and more variety in templates in the gameplay world than just PVMers on Tamers. I know that there is sometimes complex management with pets, but pets, it's really the easiest walk in the park, especially on Outlands with their self-healing and special attacks and customization, leveling, all that. Leveling pets in general is always easier than we intended, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's been a lot of engagement with people and the taming system. So we will see where we land with that. We're also looking at stone crafting and adding new artisans, which will include a harvesting overhaul. Looking at the CAPTCHA, I think that the CAPTCHA is annoying and it's frustrating for new players who haven't been a part of it before, sort of don't understand why we ended up where we are now. Anyway, we're looking at all of that. I think that adding new interesting ways to harvest, potentially like new glades or mines or some sort of making high-level resource maps more valuable, making people less inclined to use traditional harvesting means would make the harvesting system more interesting, period. Like moving away from the recall macros and the recall lumberjacks and everything else. So we've got our eyes on that. I've had some good brainstorms on how to make harvesting systems more interesting. Also, a smoke and brew system or brewing and horticulture and expanding on the plant system is in the future. Potentially a township system for player housing, allowing you to make, combine 3 houses into a township and place town deco and paths and make a real village feel amongst yourselves would be an interesting and welcome addition to the server, and start to let players create their own communities in a more in-depth way. We have some really cool player communities already. Pathfinder's Haven and Use, I think it's called River Run. Those areas are really unique to Outlands, and they capitalize on the real estate and put all of that up. And then Cathedral Dungeon will be our 10th dungeon. I've teased a few pictures. It was built initially, the first and second levels and exteriors of that dungeon were built by Silvio, who was a former player of ours and designed this amazing dungeon. And it's just too incredible for us not to use at this point. So that will be added. The thing is, it's massive, so it will potentially come with a land expansion. I don't want anyone to hold out hope for that, but there will probably be an island map expansion with that. I'm not sure how extensive it will be at this point, but that's coming this year, hopefully. I don't want to do an Ossuary 4 all over again, but that's definitely on the radar of development. It'll probably be sort of a gargoyle and ghost theme. And then we'll be making an announcement soon about our goal to move towards an exclusive client, which is just Classic UO. We've been saying this for a long time, but we're seeing a lot of client abuse right now. Players who are using clients that they shouldn't be using, or they're customizing open source clients and logging in and automating things that we don't want anyone to have access to. It's extremely hard to crack down on any of this so long as Steam active. We've made, I have nothing to do with this. Jaden and his team have made great strides in bringing Steam to the Classic UO client. They've reverse engineered the programming language for Steam so that all of your Steam macros will work in the Outlands Assistant. And eventually, all we will be allowing to connect to the shard is our version of Classic UO with our assistant. I think that this is a huge step towards leveling the playing field for. It's frustrating as a staffer to police this. In general, I imagine it's also frustrating for players to not know who you're playing against or what client they're using or what advantage they have over you because they're cheating. And we are ready for that to be a non-issue, finally.
Old news.
Additionally, working on the new player system, we have a lot of new, especially right now. I know a lot for something. Outlands has seen continued growth. We pulled out some stats recently. We have over 1,000. At any given time, there's between 1,000 and 1,500 players online, and we see 12,000 unique logins every month in a 30-day period. If we were on Steam, we'd be in the top 250 games listed there, which is no small feat for a game that's 23. It's run by people. So we know that there's a bit of a gap between logging in, learning about Ultima Online, and also learning about Outlands, which has its own complexities and nuances that are we do our best to document, but aren't necessarily always documented well enough to guide a new player into the whole situation. So that is constantly a work in progress. But that'll include hopefully a new player society system where they can do some quests, footing a companion system, which will finally make use of the companion building in Shelter Island, and a variety of other things where players can learn about how to play Ultima Online and about the intricacies of Outlands. And I will end this just by saying thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves, take care of your family, listen to what scientists and health professionals are saying about the COVID outbreak. And we hope that you're enjoying your time on Outlands and continue to enjoy your time on Outlands. And then one last thing is Luthien decided he had some free time one night and coded Outlanders of Catan, which is basically Settlers of Catan in game. So I'll leave you with a little tease of that and sign off. So hope you all enjoy your weekend. Don't forget to buy a lotto ticket. Society's reset at 8, I think, and play in the tournament this weekend if you want to give it a shot and cash.
All right, I'm gonna do the raffle real quick.
Oh yeah, don't forget, type Outlandish to enter the.
Oh, I already closed it.
Coins.
Perfect. Acid Bath 421. Who is that?
Anyway, thanks for listening. I'm gonna sign off now and go make some dinner.
All right. Thanks, Owen.
Yeah, thanks,
everybody else. So yes, who's Acid? Acid. Gonna see if he ends up messaging me or not. Oh, there he goes. Okay, cool. Just message me your character name in game, and I'll get you those prevailing coins. And with that, thanks everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and actually pass this over to Blacklisted, it looks like. Yeah, let's go raid Blacklisted. Hopefully he's not upset right now. Have a great one, guys. Bye.
Piece of shit. I appreciate you, Expo, bro. Thank you guys for that fucking debrief. I stole your content, by the way. I made sure it was okay with Owen first. Hopefully he asked you since I was on your stream. But thank you. Big time. Oh, shit. For all that information. He was joking, Sutri. It was just a joke, bro. It's just a joke. They're not really nerfing tamers.